Hello, this is Jamie Magrich. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. This video is my top 10 must-haves for paper crafting. I'm going to add a couple more because I couldn't narrow it down to just 10, but let's get started. My number one is a good work surface. You need a good, cushy, level work surface to do paper crafting on. The reason for that is if you're using stamps and that, you want to get a good impression, you need a nice level surface, and the little bit of cushion that a stamping mat or a foam mat or a piercing mat gives you helps you to get a good impression almost every time with stamping. So that's my number one. Number two is a good paper. The Whisper White cardstock is by far my favorite paper to stamp on. I have spent a lot of money and got the Nina, and it's nice paper. I really like it, but you get a much crisper, nicer image on the Whisper White cardstock. Now you do also need a thick for your card base, so you have your Whisper White cardstock, and then there's a thick. This one is just another package of the Whisper White. Here's the thick. And the difference in the weight, let me pull one out. See, this is heavy enough to make a card base. This one is a little bit thinner. It would make a card base, but it's not as strong as the thick. Now let me show you why I like the Stampin' Up! Whisper White to stamp on. I've got a couple samples here. This is the Whisper White. This is Nina Classic Crest Solar White. And I got a stamp pad here. Let me show you the difference. I'm going to stamp the exact same stamp, and you'll see the difference. Make sure it's inked well. Except for my stamping error, I'm not sure if you can tell a whole lot of difference this time, but there's more details usually in the Whisper White. Let me get a different stamp that I actually think you can actually see the difference on. Where's my healing hugs? And this one I know you can see a difference on. Color. We don't want to use green for a rose. This is real red. Make sure I get it inked well. That one you can tell the difference. This is the Whisper White. You can see all the details. This is the Nina. You can still see the details, but it's just a little bit more fuzzy. See how much more details you can see in this one? That's why I recommend the Whisper White for stamping on. Okay, so if you're a stamper, paper crafter, number one is your surface. Number two is a good quality paper for stamping on. Number three is a good quality stamp. I love Stampin' Up! I also like Jami'e stamps a lot. Heartfelt Creations. There's a lot of really Hero Arts. There's a lot of really good stamps out there. You want a good quality stamp. It doesn't matter if it's photopolymer or rubber, which is like these or the red rubber. I prefer the red rubber for getting good, nice, crisp stamps, but I prefer the photopolymer for if I need to do different layering. So it really doesn't matter. They're all good stamps. Just make sure you get yourself a good stamp that has both images and sentiments if you're starting out, so you can make some nice cards. Okay, so that's Number 1 is your surface, number 2 is good paper, number 3 is good quality stamps. And number 4 is obviously going to be a stamp surface. I mean, something to adhere your stamps to. You need a good block. Any clear acrylic block works, but I love these from Stampin' Up. They're ergonomically made so you can hold on to them easily. But I recommend a stamp positioning tool if you have trouble getting good images stamping. So that way you can restamp until you get a good image. You can either use the Stampin' Up one. There's a Misty, which is nice. I do like this. I have the Misty as well. Okay. Then number 5 are inks. I recommend you have a good black ink. Memento is my go-to most of the time. I like Jami'e Amalgam ink. It's good for watercoloring. It's good for alcohol ink coloring. This one's good for alcohol ink coloring. I also like, I don't know if I have it in here, VersaFine Onyx Black. This is one of my favorite inks too. If you want to do fine detailed stamping, this is one of my favorite inks. Okay, but if you want to do any other coloring, I recommend a good color palette of colors. You don't need a huge selection. As long as you have like one of each color family, by stamping off you can get different colors, lightnesses and darknesses of colors. So if you're just starting out, just get 5 or 6, one of, a red, a green, a blue, like that. This is like my favorite colors. I would probably add another blue besides the Night of Navy, but okay, so good quality inks. These can be used besides stamping with, watercoloring with, ink smushing, lots of different techniques you can use for those. Okay. Next is going to be a good paper cutter. You can, this particular paper cutter has a scoring tool as well as the cutting tool. You want to make sure it has good markings for whatever imperial or metric that you're using. You want to make sure it's large enough to cut your 8.5 by 11 paper or 12-inch paper if you're doing scrapbooking. This one has the extended arm, so it goes out all the way to 17 inches. And again, it's good as cutting and scoring. I also like the guillotine cutters. This one is actually my favorite, except it can't do the 11-inch. You have to cut it the short way first. Okay. Then scoring. You need something to do scoring with, whether it be your this tool here, which does both cutting and scoring, or bringing in a scoring tool like this. This is what I use 90% of the time, this, to score my cards. But this is a great tool. This one goes longer, so like if you're making boxes or whatever, this larger one works well. But you can do it all on this. It works just the same way. I just like the deeper groove that I get when I score on these. Okay. Then, going along with that, if you don't want to go that elaborate, you can always go a ruler and a good scoring tool. Now this particular one fits inside this tool here. It's interchangeable with a piercing tool, a little spatula, but it's got a dual-ended scoring tool. So you can use that and your ruler if you and a pencil if you don't want to invest in that. But some way to do scoring is, in my opinion, a necessity. Okay. The next thing that goes along with that is your bone folder. I really think a bone folder is a necessity to make nice, crisp creases, make your cards stay closed nice so you don't end up with that ripply kind of edge on the edge, or boxes that don't quite look crisp on the corners. So I really think a bone folder is nice. This one is a Teflon bone folder. It's kind of expensive, but it doesn't leave shiny spots on your paper when you're burnishing with it. This one I think is like $6 from Stampin' Up. Okay, then a good pair of scissors. I have, this is my one for ribbon. It's a long-handled one. I also use it sometimes for paper, but a good pair of scissors for cutting ribbons and that kind of thing. And then for doing fussy cutting and any kind of cutting, make sure you have a good, sharp, pointy end pair of scissors. These are probably one of the best scissors I've found. I think these are Stampin' Up ones. The Cutter Bee are very similar, just slightly different colors, and so those are my recommendations. The last of the 10 things is a good adhesive. This is my absolute favorite adhesive as far as for Stampin' Up. My very favorite adhesives, get it out here, you can tell I've had it for a long time, are glitter glue. It dries clear, doesn't be sticky, it adheres things fairly fast. And it doesn't leave those snakies or ridges or watermarks in your paper. Connect Glue by Jami'e K is awesome as well. It's easy to get out of the container. I like that a lot, and it doesn't clog a lot. But as far as Stampin' Up, I love the Tombow Mono Glue. You just have to be careful. It dries clear, but it also stays sticky. Glue dots are like one of the easiest. They're awesome. Tear and tape or some sort of tape adhesive like that, and then your tape runners. Any kind of tape runner works good. And then of course some sort of dimensional, whether it be the Stampin' Up dimensionals or before I got into Stampin' Up I used the Scotch. I like this a lot too, but the dimensionals are easy to use. Okay, so that's my top 10. And my most, I have a couple things that are, I think, very important. If you're a paper crafter, some sort of coloring medium, whether it be watercolor markers, alcohol markers, or, where did I put them? I can't find them right now. Watercolor pencils, some sort of coloring medium so you can color in what you're stamping. If you only have black ink, a coloring medium can make all the difference in your projects. And then these are, in my opinion, a necessity, but they're not an absolute must-have. This is a glue eraser. So if you're using the glue and you get some glue someplace you don't want it, you can use that to erase it. And this is a mono sand eraser, so if you get a little smudge of ink on your projects, you can sand it off with this eraser. It works really good 90% of the time. Then last but not least is some sort of medium to do ink blending. A sponge, a finger dauber, some sort of tool to do ink blending with. And then I just thought of one other, which I think is an absolute necessity, which I should have, some sort of tool, whether it be Stampin' Scrub or a chamois to clean your stamps with, or keep your fingers clean, or Okay, so those are my top items that I think are absolute must-haves in your paper crafting. Thank you so much for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.